Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the MN Viking Zombie Twitch channel. My name is Kyle Smith, and I am the lucky guest that gets to sit in with Adam Carlson. This is your show, man. I'm happy to be back to review another movie with you. We're going to talk about Apartment 7A today, and man,
Yeah, it's been a
what
little
a
while. I'm glad to be here to talk about another movie because it's been way too long.
well, we got some good recommendations that you had sent the other day. I like. We'll do that other one with J.K. Simmons soon because I want to. I'm very interested in that angle for him. But today, I watched Apartment 7A. I know you watched it recently, and man, Adam, for a spoiler, Adam told me he's like, I like this a lot. I think you will. I like this movie way more than I did thought I would off the preview. Um,
I know you like those like possession kind of, demonish movies, and I thought, okay, this might be right up your alley. And I don't know, this is a spiritual prequel to Rosemary's Baby, and I didn't know how familiar you were with that.
I'm going to have a
So,
total disclaimer because I don't want to be ever want to be that guy that goes, you know what, I'm going to talk about something and hope I can get by without anyone noticing. I don't want to be caught in like a lie and look like that. So I don't know. Of course I've heard of the film Rosemary's Baby, but I
oh
haven't
yeah,
seen
it
it.
is a classic that a lot of people have said is a masterpiece, and I don't know if it's a masterpiece, but it's very, very good. And if you are into those older school a touch of horror, more suspenseful, little thrillerish kind of flicks, Rosemary Baby, you can't really go wrong with that one.
That'll be on my to-do list here very soon. I'm excited for it, and that's it. Kind of leads you kind of led me right into that, which is great. This movie has a slow build, and there are some movies that you and I love in the horror genre where it's a lot of shock and awe. You and I both are slasher kids from the 80s. So you get that kind of shock and awe in those movies. There are some that are very intellectually crazy. Like the one that I saw most recently that I thought would be really fun, maybe we can do one day, the latest Hugh Grant movie. Very crazy for the mind. It's very twisted. But this
Oh,
one, what's that?
Heretic?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a great
Yeah, I
movie.
saw that.
Yeah, I'd love to review that sometime. I didn't another instance where I'm like, man, uh, I didn't see him playing a role like that, but he did very
Right.
well in my opinion. But for this one, this is a slow burn, and you really have to invest in the characters in this movie. And I think just that melting pot of a good storyline, good directing, good cinematography, good actors and casting. I think this kind of had a very good marriage, and we'll start it out here. This is a 2024 movie. The main character is Terry Giannoffrio, played by Julia Garner. What a fantastic job she did as the main character in this movie.
Yeah, you kind of had to really get kind of invested in her wanting her career as a ballerina.
Mhm.
And I know that might be hard for some people to connect to, but if you're watching that movie and you felt her passion trying to do all that work through an injury and having people like continuing to test her and push her boundaries and do what they could to break her, it was tough to watch at points.
Yeah, and you have to feel if you have any kind of when you come in with a blank slate and let the movie paint the picture for you, you have to feel empathy for her. This is set, I think, probably what early 1900s, and focusing on a girl who wants to make it big and be a star and chase fame through dancing. Gruesome injury to start the movie. It made my stomach turn because I can't do the lower leg stuff. I've shattered both of my ankles twice each, so I know that feeling. It's like very gut wrenching, and yeah, you feel the empathy for her, and I think she does such a good job because sometimes you can see what an actor or actress is trying to do in a film, but they're not. I don't want to say good at it, but they don't really make it believable. I really truly believe the way that she conveyed her emotions and just her acting in general. Like, man, it really does feel like the world is just beating the crap out of her and she's beat down because there are points where she literally has to smile through pain, both physically and emotionally, and you just feel terrible for her, especially at the
And
start of
some
the
of those
movie.
auditions she went to, you were like, I don't think that's worth it.
No, most of them I was like, why are you doing this? But it's a testament to her character of not giving up and saying, hey, like this is what I want to do. Like for me, just relating it to myself selfishly, you guys have seen I've got one dog that walks in the frame, one's here. I work with dogs. I can't imagine doing anything else. I love my job. So when she did that, I felt that passion at some point where I connected it with myself to say, no, no, this is what I'm here for. And like, I applauded her for that. But at some point, I kind of was like, all right, you got to hang it up because you're just not the same. That foot injury was nasty, so bad.
And then she kept getting like weird opportunities, like with her living situation not being great, and then being able to get that apartment when she had people out. Like, they felt like they were trying to help her and get her back on her feet. You know, which is a bad pun with an ankle injury, but I'm sorry.
They kept saying it too. They said it like 5 times in the movie. I was like, come on, is somebody not going to acknowledge it? That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I understand why she would take the apartment the way she did and
Mhm.
how she was able to use that to help her keep things moving. And they had the connections, and everything just seemed to be looking up for her in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so she has the injury. She has a very bad casting where basically the people that are running the play that she wants to be a part of, they're just totally and brutally honest with her, and they break her down physically and emotionally. And it's really sad to see someone get tested because she's very innocent. That's kind of spoiler alert. That's kind of the whole reason she's chosen for this movie is her innocence and how she can be a vessel. And um, yeah, you feel bad for her getting the opportunity. Speaking of apartment 7A, she's approached by an older couple because she's going into a building trying to follow one of the directors of the play to try to find a way to weasel her way in to get a second chance. And she's approached by an older couple when they see her struggling outside physically. She's not feeling well. She's doing what is it, painkillers or whatever she's
Oh yeah.
addicted to, and it's not registering well. But this is all a testament, like I said earlier, to her wanting to like perfect the craft, and she literally was giving her body up to break down to try to get this role. So when that opportunity comes along, and it's kind of a golden ticket. Hey, you don't have to pay. You can stay at this really nice, famous place, and we'll help you out. I mean, she was kind of almost forced to say yes, even though she didn't have to. And you talked about earlier people being so mean and rude to her. She walks in early in the movie to her roommate having to defend her for paying her portion of the rent and the other person there. It's very awkward and you can feel the tension. So
Oh yeah.
you can't really blame her for taking this opportunity. It's an older couple that offers to give her another section of the hall.
And there was such like a quiet, unassuming couple, older couple, that you were like, okay,
They were
yeah,
charming,
all
man.
right.
They're very charming. It was odd how charming they were. And shout out to Diane Weist. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She plays Minnie in this movie, and she's got a fun, old school accent straight out of like the '40s,
Oh yeah.
and it's really cool. Roman Castevet is the character played by Kevin McNally. They're an older couple, and they explain later in the movie like, "Hey, we never had kids of our own, but we're very wealthy. We want to take care of you. We like your story. We can tell like." You're gonna make it, and they seem really encouraging. And if you didn't know the premise of the movie, you'd be like, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" If you didn't know that some
If you
major
have never
twist was
seen
going to come
Rosemary's
later.
Baby, you would have no clue what's going to happen. And I kind of didn't get that opportunity because I am very familiar with Rosemary's Baby, so
Mhm.
like I knew what was going to happen. But for you, it was probably quite surprising.
I was proud of myself, even though this is like playing a video game on easy mode. I kind of figured there was an ulterior motive, and then with the not so subtle hints with the dreams that she was having, I kind of saw what was going to be. But I was so I don't know how you feel about the cinematography, but it was so artfully done. Um, and it's one of those movies that like for horror and the suspense genre, there are sometimes when movies are a little slow. Like they did the movie last year. I loved seeing it because you and I are Friday the 13th fans. But you could tell it was clearly a Friday the 13th ripoff, and it's a POV from the killer's point of
Oh,
view.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's really good, but I can see why the reviews are bad because there's a lot of walking around. It's a lot of I'm following a big lumbery guy around the woods. Okay,
It's funny you talk about bad reviews because this movie has a 43% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 49% on Metacritic, and a 5.8 on IMDb. And I think those are all dangerously low.
that's not it. You got to see it. If you can watch this with an open mind, like I did. I've said many times on your channel, man. You are the expert here. I am the student when it comes to watching movies, especially the horror genre. That's it's ridiculously low. This was a great movie, and we'll get ratings like we
But
always
I
do
feel
at the
like
end.
some people watching it probably might have gotten bored with the first half of the movie with the characterization and
Right?
setting up everything with the pregnancy, which I was a bit turned off from the like sexual assault scene where she went to go
Yeah,
see that director and he drugged and alcohol and knocked her out and tricked her into thinking that she was having a baby with him.
yeah. That whole part was kind of like purposely swept under the rug for the film because, like you're saying, and we're getting to maybe the middle part of the movie where she's moved in with the older couple, and they say, "Hey, that guy that you got turned down by that runs the play, like we know him, we can get you in there, and we'll get a dinner with him. We'll all have dinner together." Well, it turns out to be them one on one. She's drinking. She's addicted to pain pills. Spoiler alert: she wakes up in his bed the next day, and she doesn't know what happened. He says, "Well, that while I won't take that to heart, I had a great time last night." Thinking now, oh my God, he drunkenly took advantage of her. That I'm the same way. That rubbed me wrong. But then you
Which honestly,
see,
at this point, we don't even know if that really happened.
yeah, we don't know. He's kind of trying to lead that into the movie to kind of give you a hint that there was a good time last night. She doesn't remember a thing, but you see this all wash away when he says, "You know what? You got a busy day ahead of you. You're going to audition for this," and then she completely just negates that sexual assault, like you said, that happened while she was inebriated, and she's like, "Oh my God, I get to audition for this play," and man, that was really crazy because it happened so quickly in that scene
Right.
where I didn't have enough time to process it. She doesn't, but she doesn't care because you could see the happiness overcome. Shout out
And
to
he
her
distracted
acting.
her so quickly with that,
Yep.
audition and possible role that it did it changed the whole tone of the movie in just a snap.
Now I'll give you guys anyone that watches this and you haven't seen this movie and you're taking this review to heart. I will give you something in comparison. Thinking about it now, with just the scenery and the setup and kind of it looking the same, not visually but plot wise, if I'm explaining it, this reminded me a lot of Get Out, the recent smash hit from Jordan Peele, or was it Keegan Michael Key? I can't. Oh, it's Jordan Peele.
Yeah, Jordan Peele.
So this is a lot like that movie. If you kind of catch my drift, how there's going to be someone that's led on, and there's going to be an ulterior motive, and it's very, very evil. The same thing is happening here because I'm looking at the cast and I'm thinking, I don't remember all these old folks. Oh wait, they're at the party and they're kind of
Right.
their minions because they know what's going on. The poor girl Terry in this movie, she has no idea what's going on. But at this point, we're starting to see a shift where her dreams are becoming reality. Miss Minnie, the older lady, is kind of the mother figure in this movie. She's got a friend who gives her some kind of special potion that rubs on her
Oh yeah,
ankle.
that salve for her ankle.
It's really nice and it helps her heal. So she's back physically to being like a top dancer. She's not afraid to do the move that once broke her foot, and she's moving with fluidity, and she's kind of hitting her stride, and you're really feeling good for her. This was kind of the climax of the movie for this character of, oh my gosh, things are looking up, like she's going to be a star.
Right.
And then the bottom drops out, and the worst possible thing that could happen from a sexual assault, there's a pregnancy, and she's devastated. And this is where the movie really starts to show its evil side because,
Yeah, this is where like the movie kind of transitions into what Rosemary's Baby the movie is. Like if you've seen that movie compared to 7A,
mhm.
that's where like the jump goes from telling the prequel, telling where these characters came from and how things happened, into what actually happened.
Yep. And if you haven't picked it up by now, we have to like kind of spoil it and let it out. But yeah, she was sexually assaulted. There is a baby involved. And now she has the juxtaposition to say, okay, for what we know in the movie and what she thinks, it's from a young man her age, maybe a little older, but they're in the same age bracket to where they could have been an average couple you see on the street together.
Yeah, big time ballet dancer or dancer director, and the
Hmm.
people she's working with know that she had hooked up with him, and they don't treat her nice because of it at all.
Oh, they don't respect her at all, especially one particular girl. She's very mean and snotty and outwardly snotty to her about it. And then you start to see it get really weird. A pregnancy, traditionally, a woman will be the person to break the news and tell her friends. Well, because this is not this is out of wedlock and this is like not a traditional one. The news gets around through gossip and rumor very quickly, partially to the dancers in her play with her that don't like
Well,
her,
she
and
tried to
then
hide it as long as she could, but it gets to a point where you can't anymore.
well, you can't deny it, and then once it gets out, that also goes to um, it also goes to the older couple. Who is it, Minnie and Roman?
Oh yeah,
They catch wind, and the only part of the movie that actually seemed genuinely sweet. Had you not known what was about to happen, they were prepping the place for her to stay for a baby, and they were being very parental about it, which
right.
is that's every parent's
They're
dream when they
showing
have
a lot of
children.
care and affection for this child that has not entered the world yet.
Yeah, they're very parental about it. That's every parent's dream once they get
But
to
there
that
was a big
age.
reason why they were more interested in that baby than they were at her at that moment.
Yeah, that big reveal at the end is absolutely nuts. So yeah, you see that they're gonna have what they hope to be a grandchild. Essentially, we say that with air quotes because it's not actually their child.
Right.
But yeah, things are going not so well, and then she's in that dilemma of, well, I'm not marrying this guy. I don't want to ruin my career. That's the number one thing she kept saying. She's like, I've worked too hard to get this far. I can't be a mother. And this is like set in the early 1900s where abortion is highly frowned upon.
Oh yeah.
So she ends up going around and sneaking around because she has some suspicions about things. Things are starting to get a little more eerie. Things are odd. She's noticing things here or there,
And that
and
old woman's
she's
starting to get a little extra aggressive.
yeah, that was crazy. Which was we know now, and in the movie that was a sign to try to warn her. um, I forget the character's name. I'm so sorry about that. There's a lot of like older people that come through these apartments that are all together in the same hall for these parties, and they've really welcomed her in to try to feel like one of their own. But she doesn't know these people, which you kind
Right.
of feel for her on. Um, but yeah, she's going through this emotion in this movie, and that's another thing that tugged at me really hard. Investing in the movie like I did was, if you're a woman, you want to advance your career, how hard would it be if you have to get an abortion, or you're thinking about getting an abortion? Like, that's going to take a heavy toll no matter what, whether you really want to have a child or don't. You're still making a pretty monumental decision, and you can see that's wearing on her. um, I'm sure the part that I think a little extra about is like, well, am I being selfish? I'm choosing myself, blah blah blah. But she didn't have a baby in the ideal situation at the end of the day.
Right.
So going through the movie, they're getting closer and closer to doing this play. Some eerie things are happening around that she's noticing, and she finally decides, okay, everyone keeps going forward in this new circle of people that have taken me in. They keep highly pushing me to have this child, but I don't want to. So she goes behind their back and she's like, I think I'm going to have an abortion. She talks to her friend, and it goes pretty south. That was one of the creepier things in the movie, especially in a vulnerable state like that. But I'll let you chime in on it because that was
Now it's been
weird.
a little while. I can't remember. Is the dance director guy? He doesn't seem very connected to the child, if I remember right.
No, yeah, you're right. He's not. He's all for her having the child, but he's not. He doesn't care. You can kind of tell his intentions pretty clearly. Of, yeah, it's going to be mine. This is great, but he doesn't show any like genuine interest.
No.
And that should have been red flag number one. The red flag number one was the sexual assault, but that should have been red flag number one emotionally, where it's like he treats it very casual, and that also threw me off and rubbed me the wrong way. But that's what the character's supposed to
But at
be.
that point, she had worked her way up, and she was actually starting to get her name on some marquees at that point, and
Right.
that was really making her really proud of herself. And she was not sure what she could do at that point to keep her career going without having to take time off for the baby and then raise a baby and keep doing what she's doing. And she was just in such a conflict in this movie. And I want to give her a little shout out for acting because on the surface when I was watching the movie, I was like, she's not a very emotive actress, but yet she conveyed those feelings very well. And I don't
Right.
know how that was really done. It was really subtle acting in a way that might have been annoying if it had been more over the top, possibly.
That's such a well described way to put it. Yeah, and you know what? To kind of piggyback for that, I think for any actor or actress when they get a chance, because I've seen her face before in some other things, but to get a chance to be um, in a place where you get a starting role, because she's not like worldwide known like Jennifer Aniston or somebody like that that's huge, but to be for this particular movie
Oh
to
wow,
be,
I didn't even know that was her.
is this the chick
I didn't
from
know that was the girl
yeah,
from Ozark. I didn't
Ozark,
know.
yeah, I don't know shit about fuck. Yeah, she's amazing. Um, for her to have this as like a starting role in this like heavy kind of subject matter, well, like you said, she doesn't have to do much. It's all about the meat and potatoes of doing things correctly and doing it correctly pretty consistently. I think she nails it in this movie, man. I'm
For
totally
sure.
with you there. Um, so back to the plot. Now things are getting spicy. She's trying to get rid of this child secretively, and the craziest thing happened at the OBGYN. They do such a good job showing you the tools and seeing her facial expressions. It's not pleasant. It's probably not for any woman. And the doctor gets almost like possessed, like you saw in Star Wars with like Darth Vader choking out any of his subordinates. And it's like,
Now keep
what
in
the
mind too, the
hell?
doctor was not a doctor of her choice. The older couple set her up with that doctor.
Right. Yeah, all by design. All by design. She getting seen by this doctor in this uncomfortable situation, and she basically gets choked out by like a spirit. And then you start to piece it together, like, oh my god, this child she's having, this spawn she's about to create is evil, like purely evil. And you're wondering at the time, she's having a lot of issues with her health where she's like writhing in pain and grabbing her stomach. You're wondering, like, oh man, is the pregnancy going to be complicated? Well, yeah, we slowly piece that together. It's not so much the pills and the booze, it's because you're birthing the spawn of Satan. We didn't
Right.
know until the very end. That's the big reveal. We'll talk about some of the ending scenes, but yeah, they have strategically picked out and preyed on a woman who they know would be the best vessel to be the vessel to birth a demon. And I couldn't imagine the magnitude of that. It's weird enough when you meet people that actually do it, because we're so used to Christianity of some form of like, oh no, we're from the church of Satan, because you always associate the devil as something evil and terrible, and like that's how it is in movies. But to have a huge room of people who did that and to see how premeditated it was,
Yeah, what's
and I
crazy is
think
that point of bed, especially for you, was looking at where they were at then, and looking back at how the director, the couple, the doctor, how they all manipulated her.
they were all in on it, and everything had to be simpatico for it to work, and it did. And then thinking about like how the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm thinking, how does this poor girl feel? Because she knew something was wrong, but not being able to put your finger on it. You know, when you think you want to talk about something and you can't remember what you said, or you walk into a room, you're like, damn it, what did I come in here for? That feeling of the eerie feeling of like what's going on. And we haven't even talked for the movie. She's having these visions and these nightmares of different characters and different things that are absolutely creepy. The typical horror movie stuff you see, like a demon with horns, gross deformed hands. You know, you see the kind of the jump scare with the old lady. You see all these things, and she's envisioning her future, and she doesn't know why.
Right.
Having those on top of having that weird feeling of like something's off, like that really that was really conveyed very well for me watching the movie, and I felt uncomfortable for her. Not so much in a way that I was scared, but it made me uncomfortable, and I was like, man, they did a really good job with that.
And as a viewer, you're like piecing this together as she is, so you're kind of like in
Yep.
the same boat while you're going, and you're like, oh wow. At one point, you're kind of like, this ain't good. I don't know what you can do now. You know.
Right. And that's the funny thing too, like the way you said that to compare it. Like some movies, I get mad at the characters because the character themselves, like the actor or actress is great, the plot's okay, but the character themselves are too stupid to see the obvious.
Right.
We don't have that in this movie. She's a very smart and well educated person. She's been through a lot, so she kind of
Her
has to
only real
be.
flaw is her focus on her career.
That's very true. Her love for her career kind of clouded her judgment a little bit. But yeah, she doesn't have that point where you're like, hey, you shouldn't do that. Like she's getting chased by an older lady with a pair of scissors. It's like, yeah, lock the door and get the hell away from her. Like, of course. she's very smart. I think going through all the things that she had a broken home and a broken past too. She's got to be tough, and tough people usually are at least street smart. But yeah, at this point in the movie, you're just like, oh my god, she's birthing the spawn of Satan. These people are all in on it, and now she's trying to go on the war path to be like, no, 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 I'm going to fight against these people because this isn't right. This was against my consent, and I don't stand up for it. And then she realizes like, oh, I'm not the first person they've tried to do this to. So she realizes like escaping is probably not going to happen. They're probably going to follow me because they want this child.
And she
Um,
also knows that she can't really go to other people because nobody's going to believe her.
Nobody's going to believe her, and then the last thing you want to do is be in the loony bin because that's not going to end well for you at all. Regardless, you're probably not going to get out of there. So she's having to figure out what's her plan going to be, and yeah, obviously we'll reveal that here shortly. But man, seeing her have to pick and choose like what she's going to do, and then seeing that subtle like almost like helplessness on her face when she approaches them and she says, I know what you're doing to me, and I'm not going to stand for it. She tries to take a pair of scissors and stab herself in the stomach, and the demon in her belly forces her. Hey, I'm not going to let you do it. You're not going to kill me. And she realizes in that moment she's got to find something else to do. And you don't realize till the very end of the movie what her plan is, but you see that wave of emotion come over her face where she's like, I'm helpless. I have to give in to these people. I might as well make them an ally now. Let's see how they'll treat me if I say, okay, I accept my fate.
Right.
And to their point, like that, they were very kind. They were like, hey, look, you know, we had to pick you. This is our plan. But think about what's going to happen. You're going to be infamous forever because you're going to be the mother of the devil.
Right.
Like, you're going to be untouchable. Everyone in history is going to know your name. And that was really crazy to see her face go from like fear and I'm going to fight back within a matter of minutes goes to helplessness and acceptance. And you're like, what? You're really good? Are you really going to go through this?
Right? I kind of bought it for a minute.
I did. I bought it for about 5 minutes, and then I realized at the very end, which was so poetic. Um, she's having a dance. She finally gets to do her dance because they've healed her body in some voodoo magic weird way, and she's at the top of her game. Um, she's dancing around the room with all these people, and they're saying, "Hail Satan!" Hey, we're going to do this. Like you're going to be the vessel that brings the ultimate demon in the world, and you're going to change history. And she has this really poetic dance. I love the music choice for this song too. It
Oh
was
yeah.
very, very good. And what you realize is, oh shit, they're on like a very high floor in an apartment building, and she's kind of dancing around, and
The
everyone
seventh
believes it.
floor.
And you're like, oh no, this is not good. You see the hesitation right before the movie ends. She's by an open window, and she looks out, and she makes eye contact with Minnie, and Minnie just for half a second goes, "What are you doing?" She doesn't say that, but you can see it on her face, like,
Right.
what is she doing? And she has to commit suicide to get out of this. She ends up hurling herself backwards out of the window, falls on a car, and then poetically, that's how the movie ends. And I thought it was, I don't know, man. I not to rush the ending on that, but to have people be like, "Oh, this movie sucked." Dude, this was art in the pure sense of the word. This was a very artistic movie.
I doubt that anybody who gave that movie a really poor review watched it till the end. I'm
Yeah,
thinking they probably got bored in the first half and were like, this ain't for me. That's what I'm guessing.
it's so funny saying bored in the first half because I said something about a movie that's still in theaters today that I think is terrible. The Substance is out, and I don't ever want to review that movie. And I love the first half of it, and in the second half, I was like, "What the hell is going on?" So I could definitely see your point here on the opposite end of, yeah, maybe a little. Maybe if I had one critique of this movie, it was a little slow, but that's the part as a viewer, like you got to take some ownership yourself and say, "Okay, I'm going to invest in this." And really give it a
I
shot. And
don't
I'm
think I would
glad
have
that
been
I
as
did.
connected to her in that second half of the movie if I didn't take the time to watch that first half.
Correct. It all melds together, and really, I mean, it's tastefully done. But you're exactly right, Adam. If you spend the time to water the garden that is the first half of this movie, it will blossom for you, even if it's a little slow. But I thought the pace of the movie was fine. I didn't think that it was too slow. Maybe the subject matter is maybe what people
Well,
didn't
if you
like.
tuned into it expecting like horror from the beginning, you're not getting that.
Right. I didn't know what to expect. I just know that,
Because that really eases you into anything that's going to be uncomfortable or
yeah,
scary or anything like that.
it's weird saying that. When you say ease into something for anybody like that, I think of like commercially successful horror movies that could do that to get a wider audience. Maybe it's like radio rock and roll. Like there's a formula there. We know
Well,
it
I hate to
works.
slam on one of your favorite movies, but
Sure.
I mean, horror movies in general had to typically start with that scene that gets you hooked. And
Hmm.
one of the first scenes I think of when I always think of that is the Drew Barrymore scream start.
Yeah, of course.
And that scene sets the tone for that whole movie. And it makes you pay attention from the beginning with that first moment of shock. And this movie is
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah, no, really have to wait and eat your vegetables on this. But I'm with you, man. I think that the payoff there is the investment because, like for me, I'm not a big theater or play guy. I don't like musicals. I'll go to them in person because they're the talent there you can't deny, and that's kind of why I go. I'm not a theater guy, so watching a movie about a dancer, I mean, normally I'd be like, "Nah, I'm good," but knowing that this was a suspenseful horror movie, I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in. And it just so happened because I let the guard down and I just said, okay, you as the movie, you paint the picture on this blank canvas. I'm giving you the slate because it had such good direction and it had good cinematography and the actress, the lead actress, was so good. I'm glad that I can't even say the word endure. Endure is a negative term. I'm glad that I invested in the first half of that because when the evil really started to show itself, you're like, oh my God, what's happening? I had no idea what I was in for. And I was like, oh, this is some dark subject matter. This is awesome.
Oh, yeah, it made you question so many things from the beginning. Like, I know that from the beginning you're like, okay, she's a dancer. She's willing to compromise some things to get her career ahead. I get it. But towards the end, you're like, wow, there were some really heavy topics in this movie.
Very heavy topics. Very, like I said, man, she gives a good performance in making you feel like the decisions. A lot of movies we watch, especially horror, it comes down to decisions in critical moments, and she does such a good job. Like you said, you brought it up earlier, it was really good. She'll show you the emotion, but she doesn't have to do a lot to emote. And I thought that was so cool. I'll be very interested to watch more movies that Julia Garner is in. She's very very good. Like we said earlier, she's pretty famous from Ozark. She's a young girl too. How old is she? It doesn't say. I'm trying to find it on IMDb.
I want to say she was just in a. Was it Wolfman? Was that her new movie that a lot of people don't really seem to like? Is that. Well, is it called Wolfman?
It might be. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, Wolfman, 2025. She's also in the Royal Hotel. She was in The Assistant in 2019. Sin City a long time ago. She would have been a little younger there, but yeah, she's been in a couple of big things.
Yeah, I haven't seen Wolfman, but I have not heard great things about the cinematography in that. Her performance, I haven't heard anything about, but it is when you watch a movie like this, it's all everything together. The setting for the time, the characters, the building, everything just came together so well, and it had that great feeling like you want for a movie to draw you in, and it had those things that you wanted.
She's only 31 years old. February 1st, 1994. Happy belated birthday, Julia. You'll never see this, but I'm going to pretend that you're listening because this is cool. Yeah, she's very talented. I'd love to watch more of her stuff.
And it's weird, like if you watched her on Ozark, she gave such intense emotional performances.
Yes, she
And in
did.
this movie, it was so much more subtle. Like it
Yeah,
really showcases if you've seen both of those on her acting resume, you see her range now, and
yeah.
man, that's a big range.
I think for me, the thing that I get the most pleasure out of in doing this is learning. Especially, we do it on our football podcast. I think if we went back and listened to like the first episode that I joined you guys with 11 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever it was, to now, I think my football knowledge has grown tremendously because I've watched and put the time in. What I'm doing here is not only coming because I want to be entertained, but I'm noticing all the little things, even down to the wardrobe in this movie. You have to kind of nail it down to understand like the era that you're in, and it really made you feel like I've stepped back in a time machine 100 years ago. That's kind of how it felt. Every little detail that I'm starting to notice, and even with this movie, let's see here. Director Natalie Erica James. I will remember that name now if it pops up again because this was a good movie. Um, oh yeah, she was one of the writers too. That's awesome. And especially Julia Garner, we just got through talking about her. Like I will watch her in other things now because I maybe normally I wouldn't even have picked up this. I didn't even know this was a movie until you said it. So I said, okay, cool, I'll check it out. This was one of the ones out of three that I asked about that you recommended. But
Yeah.
rounding my point out, saying some of the things that I enjoy from doing this is learning about stuff, and I'm learning more and more new things that I like from movies, rather than just being like, ooh, flashy things and good sounds and fun. Like cue the heartwarming music in the background to make me feel happy. Like, no, no, no. I want you to tell me terrible things and I want you to describe it in a way I'm never going to forget. And rolling right into our ratings, man. I don't understand how you could rate this so low if you came into it with an open mind, but maybe I'm just being biased. Maybe this is just a movie that I needed to see and it was good.
All right, I'm
But
going to ask you a non-question about this movie because is this going to YouTube at the moment, or is this just Twitch?
I think it's just Twitch.
Okay, so we won't have a copy of this once it airs for YouTube then.
Oh, that stinks. I don't think we have your YouTube loaded up on this platform. We did have
Oh,
it on the other one.
okay, so that's why then. I'll
Oh
make sure to
man.
do that.
Oh, that stinks.
Well, that's okay. We should have a live recording from this as long as we keep it shorter.
Okay, perfect.
Then we should be able to move that over there, maybe.
So yeah, we Adam and I, like I said, this is Adam's channel, MN Viking Zombie channel. We do our ratings at the end. We'll give you a 1 to 10 scale. We do like a decimal here. We're not just going to give you a flat number, but man, I'm going to go a little higher on this because I don't know why it's so low. I think this was very well crafted. Um, yeah, the only negative we kind of hit on a couple of times is maybe it's a little slow for the average viewer.
And if you want like gore and death or something too, this ain't for you.
Yeah, I forget the movie that it's in. What's the girl from? Oh man, I have her face in there. I'll think of it later. I'll drag it on forever. She. Anyways, we'll figure it out. Yeah, this is one of those where if you come into it wanting a Saw movie, you're not going to get the same kind of reaction.
Right.
You mentioned a spiritual thing. This isn't like for me. This is in the neighborhood, but still not the same as The Conjuring or The Exorcist. Like this kind of sets a good little meld of certain things. It's a very suspenseful movie, which I enjoy personally.
Right.
But to have like a 5.6, like that's a pretty average to below average movie that I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah,
I
those
would
scores are
recommend.
disrespectful.
It is. I'm glad you said that. I would recommend this movie to anyone that likes the horror genre in general, especially if you know who she is from Ozark. You're like, oh yeah, I remember her. Maybe that'll spark your
And
interest.
another thing, like if you know someone who isn't a big horror fan
Mm-hmm.
but likes suspense, and this would be a good movie to recommend to them as like an easer into some horror because
hundred
this is
percent.
not a lot of horror, and it's a lot of story and a lot of characterization. And honestly, I don't know if a horror movie, if you were to recommend this to a horror fan, I don't know if they'd appreciate it as much as a casual moviegoer.
That's a good point. I think this is a little more mainstream. Like I was trying to articulate what you just said just now a little bit earlier, but some things ease in a bigger audience, like the formulaic stuff I was talking about. This is definitely one of those that could reach a broader audience because it's not so crazy like the ones that you and I might enjoy
Right.
personally, like some of the cult classics.
Yeah, it's definitely not the sadness.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in forever. Um, Yeah, I'm going to give this movie a 7.9, man. I'm not going to give it a solid 8 because I think eight's like upper echelon, but we got to bump that up, man. This was disrespectful is the word. It's disrespectful to say this is just like a solid average movie. This was well shot. The cast is great, and it's a prequel to a very famous movie. And I think I'm ready to watch Rosemary's Baby now because if this is what it leads into, dude, you've got me sold. I'm definitely going to watch this now, but overall,
we're
this
we're
is a
about the
great
same
movie.
ballpark. I was thinking 8.2 for me because I did enjoy
Nice.
it that much.
It was good,
Like
man.
it was one of those movies where I got to the point where I was not thinking about picking up my phone and distracting myself during the movie. I was watching. I was paying close attention.
That's funny. You said not picking up your phone. So I'll tell you what I was doing with mine. I wanted to watch yesterday, but time and life got away from me. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to make Adam wait. I'm not going to do that to him. I'm going to watch today while I pack up my apartment and little by little get moved out of here. And I procrastinated so much because I'm sitting there like this on my phone. And like every 10 minutes, I'm like, oh shit, I was packing a box. So I only got like 6 boxes packed today because I was watching this movie in my apartment. But it was that good where I was like,
Oh
man,
yeah.
this is such a good movie, and I liked it. It made me it naturally drew me in. So bravo to you, man. You said, hey, I like this one a lot.
I feel like not enough
This is
people are
good.
watching this one, and it's on Paramount Plus. It's right there. It's not that hard to find.
It wasn't. I went on Amazon and I rented it, and I'll say that was money well spent because all I want to do when I do these with you is I want to have a good experience. That could be a terrible movie, but I learned something and we had fun. We've reviewed a bad movie on here before,
Oh yeah.
but more often than not, it's a lot more fun on any reaction channel when both the guys like it, and I think it kind of appeals to the audiences. We could be doom and gloom and talk crap about something, but it's more fun when it's enjoyable. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I overall, I guess if it was summed up in a sentence, this movie was a pleasant surprise.
I am really glad you liked it because I was really hoping you would because I really did like it quite a bit, and I wanted to share that with as many people as I really could. I posted it up on my Facebook when I watched it, and I think one person said they watched it and enjoyed it, and I was like, well, if that's one person, that's enough for me.
That's all it is, man. As long as somebody gets it, that's cool. You got two people because you got me hooked on it too, and I'm definitely going to watch Rosemary's Baby now because of this great, great
Very
movie.
cool. Well, all right, we'll be back talk about another horror movie one of these days, or maybe not even a horror movie. We'll talk about maybe something suspenseful, something crazy. We'll see what we can do. But in the meantime, stay bloody, friends.